case you missed it, it's the top 5 sports talkers of the day. Now, it's time for Dan Barreiro's Top 5 at 5.
Yeah, the Tasteless box is out. He's got Golden Gopher women's basketball duties the rest of the way. Kessler is scheduled to join us in studio. He will be with us at the bottom of the hour, and that means Brett Blakemore forced, I'm guessing under threat, to spend most of the time during this Top 5 at 5 on your favorite hockey team, which got a dramatic late goal in regulation, and that led to what?
Well, it led to this,
Time now for the obligatory Kevin Fallness Minnesota Wild mention.
But that led to this.
Boldy left point with a pass. It ricocheted free, came right back to him. Boldy now forced it to Johansson, right circle, thrown in front for a shot. He scored! Marco Rossi is tied the game! 43.2 seconds left, and the Wild have pulled even at 4. Gustafsson with his head down, taking a big, deep breath here.
Well, I'm sure he is. He's thinking, what am I going to shoot? He's a right-handed shot.
Crowd standing here at Delta Center. Bukestad picks up the puck. Decent pace over the blue line. At the left circle, in, fake the shot, and then Reagan off the crossbar, and the Wild win. Gustafsson looks to the referee. They say no goal, and Minnesota gets the win here. 5-4 the shootout, their first ever meeting in Salt Lake City.
The Wild keep winning. That is 43 points in 27 games for Kirill Kaprizov. Unbelievable pace. They are still top of the league now, tied with, or actually top of the league with points percentage, but tied in points with the Winnipeg Jets at 42 points.
So we all like to play this game because we so rarely have a chance to play it. And sometimes we get a little ahead of ourselves and over our skis and a little too eager. But is it taking off your Wild sunglasses, Wild colored glasses? Is Kaprizov right now in the lead, the top lane, top candidate to win MVP?
I feel like he has to be. I mean, he's definitely in the top 3 without question.
Yes.
But considering the team and the supports that he's basically putting on his back, I think absolutely he's at least in the mix. If not, I'd love to see. Yeah. In fact, I could probably look at the betting odds right now of who would be the Hart favorite. But regardless, he absolutely should be, without a doubt.
It was another, I guess, one of those games where you go, well, most years, do we even win that game? Do we come back the way we did and end up winning it? And that was a lot of what Guerin was mentioning to us when he was on with us last week, a feeling that there have been several games this year that you say to yourself, I don't think previous years we win them. In other words, these are games sometimes where you're not playing great, but you find a way to get it done, or a game where you need a late surge, you need a little bit of a late boost, and we, I think, have seen that happen several times. And so all indications continue to be very encouraging, even though this is the bonus, this is the kicker, we're still missing people, right?
Yeah. There's every excuse in the world to just turn over and to say, well, this one got away from us, but they kept battling back.
Fallness won't believe it. You won't believe it. The hockey community that's very defensive and very insecure won't believe it. But I grew up, eventually became, in terms of what I covered a lot of basketball, a lot more basketball than hockey. But I am severely and significantly and completely rooting for us at the Fan to have a month of May with the Wild like we did with the Wolves last year. In other words, by that I mean an extra month of built-in programming where we are basically talking to Russo, if not every day, every other day. We are reacting to another win or loss in, the first round of the playoffs, the second round of the playoffs, the conference finals of the playoffs. That's what I want. That's a great story. It'd be good for the station. And we've said, how many years have we? That's why part of the reason I enjoyed last year wasn't just because it was basketball with the Wolves. It was, we all talked about this, projected. Man, what's it like? Because they keep playing hockey and basketball well into May and into June. But we never have that month of May to enjoy in that regard, to talk about matchups, to react to the ups and downs of the thing. And, the Wild still have to do it, but at this point they're doing everything to put themselves in position to, you'd like to think, give themselves the best chance to do exactly that.
In the days you don't have Russo, you could have Kevin Well, you'll figure something out.
Fallness, I don't know. Well, Fallness is usually too busy for us anyway.
Well, that is true. Yeah, the Wild do need to beat the Jets or the Stars convincingly.
That's fair.
Yeah,
that's
need
not
to happen.
savagery. You're 100%. That's you could say that's the next step, right?
Yep.
Because if you want to make people believe there is hope for the postseason too, that is the process by which you build that, and you start to build that confidence. And I got to believe internally, even if maybe they don't always want to admit it, they know that as well, don't they? They have to.
They should.
They should.
I mean, I'm as excited as anyone about the Wild, but that's the next milestone for me to get even more excited is you start beating the Jets consistently, you start beating the Stars consistently. The Avs are a little worse this year, but that would be my thing.
The game last night was on what?
It was on ESPN Plus and Hulu.
Plus? Oh, it was on Hulu? Mm-hmm. See, I have Hulu.
Yeah.
So I could have watched it there and didn't even know it because I don't have ESPN Plus. Because I went every other place because I'd forgotten what it was on. So I didn't get to see any of it. I obviously saw the highlights, but that was pretty much it.
We do have numbers for Bill Belichick. The news broke when you had Mace on. Bill Belichick is the new head coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels football club. I don't get this at all. Makes no sense to me. When he had Mac Jones on the Patriots, he wanted nothing to do with a young quarterback. Good luck in college finding an experienced quarterback who can play exactly like how you want. But we got the numbers now. 3 years, $30 million for Bill Belichick at North Carolina. It's locked in.
3 years, 30. Huh.
At least that's what I've seen online. So grain of salt, maybe.
To me.
But
that's not bad. I think for me the only reason that this makes any sense is Belichick felt a bit annoyed that there weren't more NFL teams that went after him very aggressively. My theory on that is there were teams perfectly willing to come after him, but they weren't going to give him the keys to everything. And I wouldn't either. Honestly, I wouldn't. I'd hire him to be my head coach, and I'm guessing that bugged him. And he knew, even if he doesn't know, his way around a college football organization, that he thinks I'm smart enough, I can figure it out. I'm Bill Belichick, and I can control everything. I will have that control. I will be making all the decisions. I will be making all the personnel moves, and that he was so accustomed to having that much control that he was bugged. There weren't other teams in the NFL that were willing to give it to him. That's the only thing I can think of because I too think it seems like an odd fit.
Real quick, I did look up the odds for the NHL MVP. Kirill Kaprizov is your favorite. He has the best odds.
He does have the best odds. Interesting.
Yep. Yeah. So there's that last thing. The Gophers, they have their schedule for next year officially out. They're also in the Duke's Mayo Bowl the coveted, prestigious Duke's Mayo Bowl against Virginia Tech. But next year they do have to go to Ohio State, but that home schedule you're talking with the Guardsy.
Very favorable.
Very favorable.
Yeah, it's extremely inviting. I would say I would demand they go 7-0. They should not lose a home game this year or next year. A couple people are saying the Wild were on something called Hulu Plus, which is not the regular Hulu subscription, and that it's an $89.99 per month subscription. What the hell do you get for it? I had no idea. I don't think I have Hulu. I don't even know what I have half the time, but I don't think I have Hulu Plus. That's unfortunate if indeed that information is accurate. Kessler is going to join at the bottom of the hour. We got a couple other nuggets to get to before then. If you have questions for him, hit the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line 64686. Did I see this right? That A-Raj, your guy A-Raj, was expressing some frustration in one of his shows. Which ESPN show is he on with? The With It and Wow guy. What's his name?
With Pat McAfee.
Pat McAfee. Was that where he expressed frustration with ESPN people too often making it about themselves?
It appears so, yeah.
He may not be wrong about that, but honestly, is there any self-awareness at all at this point from A-Raj?
I can see literally, I'm seeing right now the preposterous statement tournament committee has notified.
They have to be notified on that. It's like, and I doubt McAfee said anything like, hey, Aaron, you're going to get, and you could do it the gutless way like I do, which is, I'm not saying this, but there are people going to come back at you with, oh, don't you kind of always make it about you too? And I'm sure he would have some very noble comeback to that. Do you think he's going to play next year, by the way?
I don't know.
I think he's stubborn. I think he wants to play. The question is, if he doesn't play if the Jets don't want him, and I don't know where that stands, is there another team that wants him? My guess is the answer is yes, because there's enough desperation at the position. Now, the question is, will he go to a place where they're desperate in part because they're not very good and he doesn't have enough good people around him, and because A-Rod is self-absorbed, I don't think he's going to go to those places. So maybe we're answering it this way. If he can't go to a place where he thinks he has a chance to succeed, then maybe he does retire.
What he should do is retire.
Yeah,
honestly.
I think you're right.
Especially the Jets, like I've said 1,000 times, he had full control. He was running that team. He brought in people that he wanted to bring in, and despite probably the Jets' best wishes, They brought in his best friend Devontae, Lazard. I mean, he could go on, and still has nothing to show for it.
It hasn't worked out, has it? If
he goes to the Browns, I can't see it doing him going any. It's not going to go any better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
probably true.
Yeah.
Texter guy, let me see if I could find the text here. They're coming in pretty quickly. This is from lawyer Tom. Per Mike Florio on PA Today, Belichick is looking to set his son up as head coach at UNC a few years down the road. That appears to be the plan after it became fairly clear no NFL teams were interested. Yeah, I'm well aware of that. That's still, and that might explain, the fact is, though, if it's 3 years down the road, Belichick still has to coach. He still has to be the person in charge. And I think the key is I would find it hard to believe that there were no NFL teams interested in him to just be the coach. I think to a certain extent, Belichick might be responsible for the lack of interest because of his desire to, pretty much be in control of anything. But yeah, we're aware of the kid thing, but I'm not that interested in it, to be honest with you, because it's going to be at least 2 or 3 years before that takes place. Now, blood's thicker than water, and maybe that's great for Bill that he sets his kid up. But here's the kicker on it. What if he's a disaster there? In all seriousness, I mean, how obligated, if I'm North Carolina, I have my limits in how obligated I'm going to feel to follow whatever the plan is, because I'm not even sure the plan works with Bill, let alone his kid. So I know that's a piece of this whole thing, but I still think it's a gamble. I think it's a significant gamble, and I think it's more than anything, it's about his own stubbornness about what he's used to, which is obviously in New England, he pretty much ran everything. And we've seen, let's go back. It's a stretched analogy because Belichick's legendary. Tom Thibodeau has been a very good NBA head coach, but is nowhere near on that level. But I kind of feel the same way about both of them at different levels, that I think Tibbs is a really good coach. I really do. I think he's better than a lot of people think, even here. But I'm not crazy about him running the whole thing, which obviously is what he was brought in to do here. And I'm not, I'm not convinced Belichick is the right guy to run the whole thing. I think there are lots of pretty well done stories indicating how poorly they did in a number of drafts, a lot of significant mistakes. And as legendary as he is as a head coach, I think and who doesn't want more power, right? But sometimes I think the best thing you can do for a great coach is to tell him, go coach. And we're going to have other people in conjunction with you. Obviously, there's got to be, group decisions made, but we got other people who are going to be part of that process. And to a certain extent, you still got to report to them. And a lot of times what happens is teams get desperate enough, like the Wolves were desperate. So when Tibbs came, they basically said, okay, we'll give you whatever you want, right? And because that's the only way we're going to get you. And we need, we need some legitimacy here. We need a legitimate NBA head coach, which is what Tibbs was in Chicago, and that's the trap that desperate teams run into, and often it ends up then biting them in the butt because it turns out the guy's better as a coach than he is as a personnel guy or as an evaluator, and he may need someone else to do those other aspects of the job. I think the Hulu Plus is where you basically get a bunch of stations like your standard stations as opposed to a cable package, DirecTV package. I get that. But I don't think I'm going to make that switch just for the basis of one even highly exciting, great finish, Minnesota Wild hockey game. By the way, where are you on the and some people bitter with me yesterday because somehow we got into the nickname discussion, and I've accepted the Minnesota Wild. The Wild is a nickname because there ain't much choice, right? There's no point there's not going to be a new referendum on it. There's no point in starting demonstrations as a result of it. I've never liked it as a nickname. I've never understood it. I shouldn't say that. I understand it, but I've never liked it. This came up again because they were playing the Utah Hockey Club, which may or may not get a nickname. They might just go with UHC, I guess. Isn't there a UHC in soccer?
No? Probably. Yeah.
So Wild, I never have warmed to it. Have you? I've accepted it because there's not much choice.
I mean, if you go back to the name, I mean, I love it, obviously.
You do love the name?
I love it. I think it's great. And I like the branding, too. I mean, that color of green is just my favorite color.
Well, that's a separate issue.
Yeah. So I like the whole theming. I like how the X feels like a log cabin in some places. Right. But if you look at the finalists for the names, do you remember what the finalists were for the Minnesota Wild? Could you name any of them?
No,
I've got them.
No, what were they? I think, in fact, somebody may have sent them in yesterday, but I don't remember.
They were the Blue Ox.
Yeah, the Blue Ox, I remember. Beds and Babes. Yeah, Babe, the Blue. Yeah.
Freeze.
Yeah, that does nothing for me.
Northern Lights.
Oh, I don't mind that.
No, not Northern Lights. Voyagers.
What's wrong with the Northern Lights?
It's not a team name.
Why not? Why is Wild a team name? That's a state of being. That's like
it's not.
That's a state of the land in which we live, I guess you could say.
No, it's the embodiment of the force of nature, Dan. The white bear.
Is that in their mission plan? Is that true?
It might be. I'm reading right from the press release. Anyways, by the way, Utah's the White Bears and Wild.
Those aren't great choices. Utah is going to be maybe the Yetis. Is that correct?
I mean, I wasn't crazy about the Golden Knights at first either.
Yeah.
I didn't really care for that. And I've kind of come around.
You have?
But it's all right.
Okay.
But yeah, I like the Wild.
It is worth noting that we may even ask Kessler about this. Minnesota Timberwolves are airing 5 games on KARE 11.
Oh.
And the feeling is that's going to be the start of a trend where you're going to see, there's so many questions about the regional cable package. It used to be called Bally. What's it called now? Now it's the betting site.
FanDuel,
whatever. Yeah. Where that's going and money you can make off of it. I don't know how much money the Wolves are getting out of having, as of now, at least it's 5 games on over-air KARE 11 TV this year. But it is interesting. And we've said this forever. I know this is a big mission at Fox 9. There's a desire of the traditional over-the-air network affiliate stations to put more and more sports on if they can get it, as in local sports, regional sports as well. And I think it makes sense, because it simplifies the situation. We talk about how what's this on? Is it on ESPN Plus? Is it on Yahoo 3? Is it on Hulu 2? Whatever it is, most people have access to it's on KARE 11 or it's on Fox 9. Makes it a lot easier. So interesting developments there. Kessler is a great TV mind. So we may talk to him a little bit about that because he may even have some insight because he's got a couple of decently inside sources when it comes to that stuff. And I don't even think he minds compromising those sources from time to time as well. And then we'll get to the ganja stuff, which we discussed much earlier in the program, and some political items as well. Special K, Pat Kessler, right around the
I wish the American media would take a great look at the views of the people in Congress and find out, are they pro-America or anti-America?
Pat Kessler.
Because people have got to know whether or not their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
I can't trust Obama. He's an Arab.
Pat Kessler.
Tear down this wall.
I did nothing wrong at the Minneapolis airport.
Senator, you're no Jack Kennedy.
Pat Kessler. And now, to help Dan break down all the tough questions in politics, it's our own Pat Kessler, political wonk.
I feel like a supermodel, except like times 10.
It's Channel 4's Pat Kessler with Dan Barreiro on the Fan.
It is that time again. Pat Kessler is with us in studio. You have questions, comments for him. I would highly recommend you hit the what we like to call the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. And there's certainly plenty for us to
festive in here.
Discuss.
We have
a bunch of holiday. Some cookies. Mace had a couple of them.
It's just pretty amazing.
Are you gonna maybe what do you think? You're gonna grab one? Perhaps?
I probably will. There was a market bazaar in the building today.
What does that mean?
Well, I don't know. It's like a Christmas market.
There was?
Yes.
There wasn't here. Wasn't it when I got here?
I think it's down in the lobby. Yeah.
What time did that start?
When I got here,
probably all day.
That's annoying.
All day.
I got here about 1 o'clock, 1:30.
So I've been to a bunch of these Christmas marketplaces a number of times. So you can fill out all your Christmas shopping, and it's pretty good.
Oh, did you pick up anything?
I was in a big hurry to get up here.
You were?
That's the way it always is. And I do notice something that I don't miss from daily media is there's always food around. There is food everywhere.
There.
And now I have slimmed down to
You've lost by 30 pounds just because you don't have to be tempted by all this stuff at the
plus Ozempic.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
Well, good for you.
No, I'm not on Ozempic.
Well,
but
it doesn't make you a bad person.
It does
if
not
you were.
at all. I think it's incredible.
Let's not,
I am a big science believer.
Yeah.
And this is a miracle, I think.
Well,
all of these weight loss drugs.
Yeah.
I think it's going to transform the economy in many, many ways, including healthcare, where people are not going to have as many knee replacements, hip replacements, all that stuff. So Ozempic is great.
I think, I don't think it should be like given out like candy. I think
so you're going to be the sheriff.
Well, I think it should be under a doctor's care, and there's even some doctors who are, shall we say, a little bit more judicious about, for example, how long they will recommend their own patients be on it, that there are certain, guidelines that might reasonably be followed. I don't really think that's too draconian.
I think this is only the beginning of these kinds of medications and drugs from the pharmaceutical industry that are going to be developed over time. And I'm going to guess, not knowing anything about it, I'm going to guess that this is going to be developed to a point where you are going to be able to get this over the counter.
Ooh.
And you see that Joe Biden, in one of his last acts as president, has ordered Medicare and Medicaid to offer these kinds of medications for free.
For free.
And it's for those in our audience who are using these kinds of drugs, Wegovy and Ozempic, I think they're extremely expensive. They are, I think, $1,000 a month.
They are extremely expensive.
And if it's free, so this is, the wheels are in motion now before he leaves office. So it would be up to the new president, Donald Trump, to rescind that. So I don't know how we got on it, except for the Christmas cookies, of which I will have one.
Yeah, I didn't realize you felt as strong about Ozempic as you do, but I'm glad you do. I think it's very helpful.
There it is.
So you've worked in local TV for a long time, and there has been a lot of discussion about the fact that, the news breaking that I think Carol Levin's going to pick up 5 Wolves games. Generally speaking, do you think it's fair to say that local stations are gravitating towards, they want to do more more of the team broadcast that we, lately have basically connected to the regional sports network. Bally turned into something else, etc. What do you think?
Yeah, the old models are disappearing. I can remember when I was a kid, you could see games on television at all hours of the day and night on regular broadcast television. For those who lived in Chicago, you would have WGN and Jack
Superstation,
broadcasting these games in the daytime because that's the only time they played. But this is something that has completely changed, where sports franchises, including every one of the big ones here in the Twin Cities and Minnesota, are looking for new platforms to get their product out there. It could be on an app. It can be on X, Twitter. It can be on its own sports channel. Now, Bally's is the old model, and they paid a blank ton of money to some of these teams. I think the Twins were getting $50 million. They end up going belly up. So what's next? Is it going to be an app like the Timberwolves have on KFAN, on the iHeart radio channel, and you can go on and listen and eventually maybe look at some stuff? Is it going to be on Twitter? Is it going to be on a sports channel like FanDuel? Or are you going to include local television stations as part of the mix? Now, KARE 11 is going to get 5 games, and as payment, they're going to have to pay for a lot of this. But as payment, they will, I believe, get a number of commercials to help defray the cost.
Right.
But can you do 30 games? And you have to take their broadcast, and so you don't have your own broadcast. But this is the future, and someone I know in the business who is a high-level executive in this television industry, in this market, I'm very close to this person, a very close source. This is the future. She is getting all of these, going after a lot of these sports teams, including Gopher Hockey, including women's volleyball, including St. Thomas, including a lot of different sports franchises, because I think in this business, people are discovering that local sports makes money for local television stations. So nothing else really does. Reality TV shows, not really. What are you going to do? So there you go.
All right.
We're going to hear a lot about this coming up.
It's a trend that is getting a lot of attention and should, and it raises interesting questions because there's almost something throwback about it. Because, the trend is, okay, your game might be on 9 different forms of TV. It might be on 3 streaming apps.
Yes.
It might be on ESPN. It might be on TNT, whatever. And in this case, it's, let's make it easy. Let's just put it on one of the local major TV stations.
Okay, so that's interesting because look what happened to the Twins. The Minnesota Twins, when Bally went belly up, suddenly doesn't have an outlet. And this was on a cable television station. Remember, people were complaining a lot for having to pay for this when you have to, if it's in your tier, having to pay extra to have MLB.com, whatever it is. But you might lose an entire generation of baseball players or hockey fans or basketball fans if you don't have this.
Right.
The only people who, in my view, have really figured it out is the NFL, the most powerful institution in the United States.
Yeah, they have. They've got it down to a science. There's no question about that. So stay tuned. There'll be more to come on that subject. So I do want to talk pot, although I want to talk about an aspect of it that you don't have on your notes first, because again, I don't know how so far this run up to cannabis businesses being legal and the licenses and so forth can be going any worse than it continues to go to. And the latest development, this goes back actually to the end of November, is the plan was, okay, we're going to have a lottery for people seeking cannabis business licenses, okay? And the decision was made that we're going to try to give a head start to individuals who are under the broad classification of social equity applicants, which involved a lot of different individuals, and all, including, I think, veterans, if I'm not mistaken. In any case, that now is on the verge of being eliminated, in no small measure because a judge in Ramsey County blocked the lottery, said not going to work because of some legal challenges. In other words, some of the groups that had applied to be among the social equity applicants that were successful were denied. Some of them are unhappy about it. I don't know how many of them have a legitimate reason to. One of them even claimed, well, the reason that what we got back was just something that said failed. We didn't even get an explanation for why we didn't meet the cut. So the judge says, not going to work. We're going to have to delay it to give the Minnesota Court of Appeals time to review legal challenges because some of those who were rejected have come up with legal challenges. Part of my bewilderment on this whole deal, and by the way, the cannabis folks, the state, are saying, well, this is screwing this whole thing up because this is going to slow down our run up. We had this plan in place. We were planning our work and working our plan. Now this is going to doom us and extend this probably into the next 2 years or whatever. Part of what makes no sense to me is if you're going to make these decisions arbitrarily or even very legitimately about who's in and who's out, because somebody's got to make the cut and somebody's not going to, do you wait till October to tell them? Because clearly what you have to realize is, well, some people are going to be happy about it, so there's going to be some legal challenges. Mm-hmm. So is this another example of, well, you waited too long to send the rejection notices, thereby tightening everything up, thinking that you're going to be able to do your lottery in late November when you just told them in October the way bureaucracies work was not realistic. So are we going to get anything right regarding this cannabis thing?
It is a fair question, particularly after what happened. And mostly, I just want to know when I can start growing my own plants. And if this thing is going to be...
You're not kidding anybody. You're already doing it.
In the basement with the grow lights and all that whole deal.
You're not waiting.
Here is the deal. This was a program that was going to give a head start to, like, who was it? Veterans. And I think people who had been previously impacted
by the industry or marijuana.
Like if you've been arrested.
Exactly.
And it was unjust because now it's all legal, all of that. So a lot of these people said that they sent in their applications. They were rejected by the Office of Cannabis, as you mentioned. But here's the important thing. They say they were not allowed to correct whatever perceived errors they were in the applications. And the head of the cannabis office in Minnesota, the interim director, Charlene Briner, and why is she there? Because they couldn't get a director. She lasted
a permanent director.
A cup of coffee and about an hour and a half. Then she had to resign.
Yeah.
She said that we were very clear. Here's a quote. We were very clear knowing there was no right to reconsider this and no right to appeal. They told people this. So if you make a mistake, don't make a mistake, because if you do, you can't do it. So they've taken it to court.
Yeah, and by the way, the appellate court here, Minnesota Court of Appeals, they may well rule you got nothing on this legal challenge. They may dismiss it, but again, give that you have to, I think, have some awareness of to let that process play out. Because now, like I said, these same folks are going, well, this whole thing's screwed up now. You guys have screwed it up. You can't get mad at a judge if he thinks, I think it's a he in this case, is following the law.
And they're going back to court to see if somebody will reverse that.
Exactly.
Reverse that. But here's the thing. So the state of Minnesota says, okay, you know what, guys? We're going to just not have a lottery at all. We're going to take our time. I think they got, 700 some plus applications. We're going to dot every I, cross every T. This is what we're going to do. If that's how you want to be, this is what we're going to do. So it's going to be June, and it is the latest in a series of
2026, I think.
Or later.
Or later. What's going to get done first? This whole deal where we actually start giving out licenses or
I got one. You go first.
No, you go.
The light rail.
Light rail. Exactly.
Were you going to say that?
It was definitely light rail. I just couldn't remember which one. Yeah. This was the Southwest light rail, I think.
I think that's going to be like 2030.
Oh,
you know,
God.
no, it's going to be 2027, people.
Now, you tell me there's another component. There's a sidebar to this story involving the city of Minneapolis, that there's some concern that that we're going to need to regulate what is now described, and I'll take people at their word for this, the pervasive smell of pot. So we're worried about already how it smells or how it's going to smell.
What's wrong with that?
I don't know. But I mean, what?
Well, Minneapolis may be in the future.
If it's legal, what can we do?
Minneapolis may be in the future, but there are 3 cities right now in the state of Minnesota that are passing odor ordinances.
Okay.
According to a great story in the Star Tribune. This is they're restricting noxious scents. It's called odoriferous smells. I love that word, P.S. So do you think pot, as it's being made in a facility, do you think that is weird? Do you think it's foul odors? Or do you think it's beautiful, spicy? I love the scent of
we know where you come down on this issue.
That's what the issue is.
Sure.
So it's Hastings, Cottage Grove, and Stillwater. They approved odor ordinances last week, which is going to restrict the manufacturing facilities of these pot plants.
Where does the Minneapolis City Council come in here? What are they deliberating on?
Well,
or debating?
there's a lot of things coming up in the city of Minneapolis, like where are you going to do it? There's a lot of laws that are being developed right now. You can't smoke around a school. You can't be within a certain amount of a city park. All of that. Those are all things that they're going to have to work out.
Anybody checking out the restrooms in most schools? Come on, man. Anyway,
man. And you know, my neighborhood, you know, just walking down the street.
That's it. Yeah, you told us that many. You've gotten contact highs.
It's
several times, have you not?
Yeah. One thing I don't know.
Do you think you'd flunk? Do you think you'd pass a pot test just on the basis of what you inhale in your community?
Let's just say that I'm glad they don't have driving tests yet. The State Patrol has not come up with it.
Yeah.
Now, I heard your previous guest, Coach Mason.
Coach Mace, yeah.
Yeah, he's really against it.
Only dopes take dope.
Yeah, only dopes take dope.
His
and then if you smoke it, it's going to lead to heroin.
That's it. Correct.
And so, you know, I respect everybody's opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But we moved pretty quickly in the state to get it done. I was very surprised, actually, that they passed it the year they did.
Be careful.
What about it?
Be careful. Be careful with the road you're going down, because you're going to get. Hell hath no fury like the pothead community. I've heard from them before.
Smoke them if you got them.
You're going to hear from them now.
No. Smoke them if you got them. Should it be the same rules as drinking my scotch and soda?
Mm-hmm.
Should the rules be the same? I can't drink it while driving, and I can't drink it while walking down the street with an open bottle, in your neighborhood especially. I mean, there are so many questions here that I think the legislature did as good a job as they could, but they pushed this through pretty aggressively.
Extremely aggressively. Yeah. And this is now we're seeing all the fine print about how challenging this whole thing is. And let's face it, it's been an embarrassment to this point. I'm sure none of this is easy to do, but nothing has gone as planned to this point.
It really hasn't. And we are among the slowest states in the entire country for implementing our cannabis laws here. Now, as far as the odor patrol, as far as that goes, what is next? I live in a neighborhood where they have the fantastic coffee shops and they roast coffee beans. So what happens? A lot of people don't like that smell.
They don't?
I think it's great.
Oh, I think it's outstanding.
I love that smell.
I don't think there's any comparison between the two, but I guess that's all very subjective.
How about cow manure in a small town where our listeners are? What about cow manure?
Well, not my favorite. But
that's one of my favorite scents.
You grew up with it, so it's no big deal to you.
If it's turkey poop, I really dislike that.
Is that worse?
Much worse. And chicken manure is terrible.
If you're ranking the poops.
Well, manure is actually, I like that scent. It's a pretty good one. And, you know, I can live with that.
So you say manure. You say manure. I say manure. What's correct?
Both. I think they both are.
They both are accepted?
Yeah, I would say so.
Huh.
Yeah.
Coffee bean smell is outstanding, I think. But some people are bothered. So the question is, where do you draw the line, right? Who gets to decide on what the smells are? and where they should be.
According to the Star Tribune, people who object to scents can lodge complaints with these cities.
Yeah.
And listen, it's that they regulate.
This is working out so well.
I know. They regulate these bad smells. And so the city could initiate odor testing with cities turning to a portable, conical device called a nasal ranger.
Come on. What are you Do
you think I'm making this
ranger?
up? A nasal ranger. It's developed by a Stillwater-based company. It's a telescope-like nasal ranger. It detects foul-smelling particles in the air to determine the odors and scents.
I'm sure that is a real cheap. I'm sure that's a really inexpensive product.
You know, why not? Smoke them if you got them. I mean, and I'm glad to hear also that the coach doesn't object if his female partners are smoking.
No, he says he's broad-minded enough that he would. No, I don't think. I asked him if he'd share a spliff, and he said, "Well, first he didn't know what a spliff was, but he said no."
How about a blunt?
A blunt, I don't think he would either. I think he
none of that. The sticky, icky.
Very straight.
None of that.
I think in that regard.
Okay, good.
All right, let's get a pause in. We've got more to get to, including an update on Dorothy's ruby slippers. Some stuff out of Washington, D.C. as well. An interesting theory being offered up by Kessler that we should be discussed under the broad classification of who is the president of the United States right now. It turns out that the ruby slippers, I don't even know if we know who ended up with the highest bid. The highest bid was it $23 million? Was that the number?
It was $28.5 million.
That
think about it.
I know it's a different world there, but that boggled my mind when I read it. $28.5 million. Does that mean that the state of Minnesota gets back its $100,000 that it had offered to the museum in Grand Rapids? What happens to that $100,000?
I'm really not sure what happens with that.
Because we were a little short.
So it was so cute, though.
Yeah,
I've got $100,000, and they had pledges from other people, and some of the pledges go away, but they did buy something there, and I'll tell you about that in a moment. But yes, the ruby slippers that have been of such interest here in Minnesota since their theft by I'm just going to do one last job mobster before he leaves, because he thought there were real rubies on the slippers, which is wonderful, which is just a great part of the story.
Exactly.
Buried in his backyard for 10 years? So this sells for $28.5 million. With taxes and fees, it comes to 32 point something. We don't know who the buyer is, but man, there's a lot of money out there.
Extremely. That's a good example of it for sure.
It's unbelievable. And my favorite, the witch's hat, the Wicked Witch, that was also for sale. And that went, last I looked, it was $200,000, went for $2.5 million.
2.5.
Now, the ruby slippers, according to Heritage Auction, is the single most expensive piece of movie memorabilia in movie history.
Is that right?
28.5.
Well, I guess that makes sense. I mean, what would top that?
The previous record was your favorite. I know you bid on this.
The sled from Citizen Kane.
Think about it.
Is that it? No, that'd be a good one.
No, it's even better. It's Marilyn Monroe's white dress.
The dress
that she wore standing above
the subway grate.
Great,
yes, in New York. Yeah.
In New York.
Yeah,
and that went for $5.5 million. That's the previous record.
So it got shattered.
Think about it
by the slippers.
Yeah.
And isn't it true though? There was more than one pair of ruby slippers.
There
anyway?
are 4.
So that's the part I don't get. To me, if I'm going to get $28.5 million, it better be the only pair that exists.
Well, the Smithsonian has one.
Oh, I see. You can't mess with that one.
And there's a private collector who has another, and I don't know where the third is. Maybe one of our listeners will know. And this was the last pair that was out there.
Will you refresh my memory on why? Because somebody texted me this. It might have even been last week when we talked about this. Why? So the ruby slippers were stolen from the Judy Garland Museum in Grand Rapids, correct?
That is correct.
So by rights, if they had control of the slippers, presumably, why, once they're recovered, don't they just go back to them without any bidding being available?
It's a really good question because they didn't own it, as most museums don't own.
They were kind of renting it out, so to speak.
Yeah, so a collector will put it on permanent display at the museum, and the museum's responsibility is to protect it. And with this one, I mean, this is, I'm making this up. I don't know, but did they just have to lift the top of the plastic that was covering it? Whoops, here we go.
Well, we kind of found out what happened there, that the alarm was off.
The alarm was off.
It was not it's kind of a Three Stooges operation.
So the interesting twist with this is that the Smithsonian has a pair, and this is a pair, and we believe that their shoes, they each have a different shoe. So there's two different shoes, and if you matched up the Smithsonian to the Grand Rapids one, then you could have one pair. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, why are they mismatched, so to speak?
Don't know. These things were originally purchased, I think, for not a lot of money. 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago when you had movie memorabilia. Right. Now, it's all part of our culture and part of our lives.
Do we know, has the person who bid successfully, was it a person? Is it a consortium?
We don't know. I was looking just before I came on to see if I could determine it, and Heritage doesn't say. Heritage Auctions. And I don't see it in any of the news accounts either. So it could be a museum. It could be a very rich collector in the United States, or in many cases now we're getting Chinese collectors who there's a lot of money to spend. And man, there's a bunch of money out there.
So the rumor that it was Paul Majors, you can't confirm that?
No, I think I would not.
It's an interesting thought.
I would.
He could afford it.
I would wonder.
Yeah, Majors did well.
I would absolutely. Yeah. He did very well.
Very well.
He's a super genius investor. So
yes, he is.
What if?
Yeah, that'd be a hell of a story.
Oh, my God.
Maybe we'll ask him. Let me ask you something. Who is the President of the United States right now?
That is a real good question. And at my advanced age, when I get taken to the emergency room, the doctors will ask me, "Sir, what year is it?"
Yeah, that's the test they do.
Who is the President of the United States? And so if I answered Joe Biden, I don't think that's accurate. I think the President of the United States right now is Donald Trump. I mean, where is Joe Biden? May I ask?
Well, he showed up in a couple of things, but he hasn't really been very prominent.
He pardoned Hunter.
Right.
And then he went to Africa.
Yeah.
And gave a speech in Angola.
So do you buy the theory? There are theories here that this is his own way of saying, well, you guys wanted me out, so bleep you. I'm going to go out. I'm leaving early.
There are some theories about that, but I would view this more positively toward Donald Trump, is that he dominates the news. He has dominated the news since January 1 of this year with all the indictments, all the trials, the incredible presidential campaign. And even this struck me when they reopened Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris after the horrible fire 6 years ago.
Did I see that cost $1 billion to redo? Is that the number?
It is. It absolutely is. And almost all of it is privately donated.
Ah, interesting. Okay.
How about it?
Yeah.
I wonder if the Minnesota legislature...
That's a damn good fundraiser there. You want to find out who that is. We got to find that person.
So the legislature, I understand, put $100,000 into that, and the ruby slippers.
And the ruby slippers
I'm kidding.
as well.
So, but when he was there representing the United States, I'm thinking, what is this? Jill Biden was there, and I will say I thought she was, under the circumstances, very gracious, and he was kind to her as well. But he is, in fact, influencing financial markets. He is making people change their ways of operation. He's making politicians do things that they wouldn't normally do, and he won't be sworn in till January 20th. I think this is a really, really interesting set of circumstances, that I don't think I have seen with previous presidents.
I was going to ask you. So you don't think to a certain degree this is always the way it works when the next person has been elected and that the process is already starting in effect even before they take oath of office?
It's a great question, but no, I don't think this is how it works because he is more prominent than the current president. And I'm thinking back to when he won in 2016, and Obama was still, of course, very active, actively doing it. Then you had Bush into Obama, but they're the president till the last day. But I think that he is kind of fading into the background, despite all of the things that he could be doing. And I would not be surprised, however, if there's a slew of pardons that are coming.
Yeah,
if
there's
executive orders that are going to happen. But at this moment, I think every single day, Donald Trump is on the front page. He leads the news. He is causing a controversy here with an appointment. He's going to Notre Dame to represent the United States. He's getting people to change their country's policies because of tariffs. The financial markets are going up and down because of what he says. That is as if he is already president.
Time Magazine will name its Person of the Year.
How about that?
Tomorrow.
Very exciting.
There are 10 finalists. Mm-hmm. I don't know who they are, but you have the pick that you believe should be named Person of the Year by Time Magazine. Is that correct?
Well, let me ask you this first. Mm-hmm. Do you have somebody in your head?
I don't, actually. Mm-hmm. I mean, I haven't given it much thought. I could, but I don't have, and I'd like to know.
But it would be a waste of time.
Well, I'd like to know the finalists would help.
It's Kamala Harris,
right? Well, it's not going to be her.
She had a pretty good year.
Okay,
or did she?
No.
Kate Middleton.
So no, it's not going to be her.
Okay, how about this? Elon Musk.
Not going to be him.
Why not?
Well, no, it might be, but I'm saying I don't think it's going to be.
Yulia Navalny, the wife of the Russian dissident who was murdered.
Okay.
That would be really cool.
Be remarkable.
That would be really cool if she was the one.
That's true.
How about Netanyahu?
Well, again, what we have to realize is Person of the Year doesn't mean you necessarily think they're great.
Yeah, they're not. It doesn't mean you're the best person of the year
exactly
or a good
right.
person.
Exactly true.
And I will just say, we go through this all the time. Joseph Stalin was twice the man of the year.
Well, didn't Hitler get Person of the Year?
He did.
I thought
1934, 33, Person of the Year.
Right.
I mean, a man of the year. Jerome Powell, Joe Rogan. I mean, he's pretty good, but I'd say no. I'm telling you the actual official finalists.
These are the finalists, yeah. Who's left on this list?
Let's go down. Let's just pass all of this and go down to the bottom here. The final one is a guy by the name of Donald Trump. So now I'm breaking it down. I say Trump or Elon Musk. Navalny would just be a cool.
It would be
really cool.
A kind of a maverick move for sure.
That'd be great.
But I think it's probably going to be Trump.
It's got to be.
Yeah.
So it's not the best person in the world, but it's the person who had the most influence on our daily lives and the news. Yeah. And I think it's him.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it's boring to a certain extent, but I think it's likely.
He's going to love it.
Yeah. Do you think he'll enjoy it?
I do. He was on the cover once before. Has he
won it before?
I believe he did in 2016. I got to look that up, but maybe our listeners will tell us.
Taylor Swift's not in the top 10?
Yeah, not. And
Guardsy will be devastated.
Oh, Mark Zuckerberg's another one. Nah.
No, I don't think so.
But Caitlin Clark is the athlete of the year, as you know. And that's pretty good.
Yeah.
But no, he is President Trump, President-elect Trump, is so enamored by being man of the year, if that happens again. He would print up fake Time magazine pictures with him on it.
It's probably true.
So,
and then sell them.
And it doesn't have the influence anymore that Time magazine, that it used to. But it's still, I think, a pretty good touchstone of where we are in this country.
On that note, we got to go. We'll see you next week. As I think I'm still working. Are you out next week? Do you know?
Well, if you're here,
I'm
here.
Today. This is what's the date today?
That'd be like the
11th to the 18th. Yeah, I'm still around.
So
you'll be around. Well, I never know. You got a busy schedule. You got a lot of stuff.
I do, but if you're here, I'm here. I mean, I'll be here on Christmas Day with you.
And good luck, because I know you you want to be in that cannabis business license lottery. So good luck on your. I hope you.
I just want my little farmer garden.
That's all it is.
That's all I want.
Just you're very innocent about this whole thing.
The minute I can pull the trigger on that, it's done.
Pat Kessler, ladies and gentlemen, Channel 4, 5, 6, and 10 o'clock tonight. We'll wrap up the show.
It's the Bumper to Bumper Show Wrap.
Brought to you by American Pressure.
Glenn Mason, a great hour in studio with him. Eventually, we did actually talk college football, but it was mainly Mason's love life and his giving advice to others dealing with love life issues. So if you missed it, I'd heartily recommend you podcast the 4 o'clock hour of today's program.
I might have to.
In addition, Kessler, of course, just joined us. And tomorrow, what's tomorrow, Thursday?
Yes.
So tomorrow's a Sean Salisbury day. We skipped the inbox last week. We're going to definitely try to get the inbox involved this week. And I believe it might be a Mike Conley week as well, the Wolves point guard, that he might be on the schedule for tomorrow. We're closer and closer to what is Bears week already. Of course, the Vikings have Sunday off. I assume that means we have a 2-hour sermons on Sunday. And then Monday Night Football on the Fan. We're the first game of the doubleheader, which actually I think it's a staggered kind of a doubleheader start. Vikings hosting the Monsters of the Midway. So all of it available to you. What did we talk about early? We actually talked a decent amount about the Gopher football schedule for next year, which includes, that was released today, and has a couple of interesting nuggets to it, not the least of which is the Gophers' first Wrigley Field game. They will take on Northwestern. I think the date was November 22. The home schedule, as Guardsy noted, is favorable. I mean, it's relatively soft. I say they should go 7-0 if they're doing the right thing, taking full advantage of it, which probably means they'll go 4-3. But the toughest opponents, certainly, are both on the road, and they don't get to skip Oregon again this year. They don't get to skip Ohio State. Both those games are road games relatively early, but the schedule, especially late, is pretty favorable. Let me see if I got it in front of me here.
I've got it here.
Rutgers, well, at Ohio State, that's tough. But after that, in order, you're hosting Purdue, you're hosting Nebraska, you're at Iowa, you're hosting Michigan State. Then you got to bye. Then, I think, is Oregon, and then Northwestern on the road and Wisconsin at home. Now, I'm never going to guarantee, where they're going to beat Iowa and Wisconsin, but both those games are at home. So you'd say, well, you certainly have a shot, or should have a shot if you're doing it right. I have no idea who the quarterback's going to be. If it's going to be the kid, I think they may try to add somebody outside of it. But that's basically where we're at, and I'm kind of out of breath because we've had full shows every day this week so far. Every day has been 3 to 6:30, which I'm not accustomed to. Tomorrow, I think we're out at 6 because of Vikings programming. It's usually traditional at 6 o'clock on Thursdays. And then all kinds of good stuff for the Friday show and sermons as well. What's coming up next here in the Fan? Do we know?
X's and O's and then Wild Weekly.
Have a wonderful evening. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 3 o'clock.